For the first time in my career, I am turning down listings for the first time, and it's not because I'm overloaded with work. It just does not make sense. Sales are down almost 10% year over year in the lowest level since 2019. And when you compound that with inventory levels, the highest that we've seen in a decade, it just does not make sense. Not to mention on the buy side as well as the sell side, unrealistic expectations have been making deals go together very, very difficult. And people are frustrated. Days on market are continuing to go up. And this has all been highlighted on a recent global news article. And you can see right here, it says Vancouver Realtors turning down unrealistic clients as home sales lowest since 2020. In fact, it's 2019, and I'll be able to show you some of that number in a moment here as we break down some of the articles here. But if you are a seller right now, unless you have to sell, there's a major life event, or you're looking to take advantage of this upsizing market, it just does not make sense for you to put your property on the market right now. If this is more of a want than a need, do not even entertain the idea. You're going to be wasting your time. You're going to be wasting your agent's time, and you're just going to be frustrated. You have to be pricely sharp as well. I'm telling a lot of my sellers, you're likely going to be disappointed with your offer price point, but you can definitely make it up on the buy side. So if you don't have multiple properties that you're juggling and it's not a major life event, do not entertain this market right now. It is so difficult. And we can go over exactly what I am referencing here. So the first charts we're going to pull up here are the sales number here from the Greater Vancouver Board. And this is the detached segment. And you can see here sales at 6,816, the lowest levels since we were in that range around April, May of 2019 here. You can see that there was an influx of 2021 in terms of the sales, and it was been a stark decline here into 2023, and has been, pretty modest going downward just a little bit here. So when we go into all property types here, just so that you can see what we're truly going up against here, it's been flatline and sales continue to drop here little by little. And when you put in a comparison here, especially to total inventory numbers, and you can see with all property types here, it just shoots up like a rocket. Essentially, since August of 2023, it's been parabolic with the rise of inventory, and these are inventory levels that we haven't seen since the last 10 years. And another interesting fact, if I go back to these sales numbers here, and I even max it out here just to show you how rare these events are, we can see that we had a shortening in terms of sales here, and this is all property types here in 2023. Then we had a little bit of a V shape here during the COVID years, and then back to 2013. So you can see how cyclical these things are. Usually with the history of sales, there's a nice V-shaped recovery. This happened in 2013. It happened again in 2019. We had a start of this V-shaped recovery here in 2023, but obviously look where things went here. This is something that we don't have a history for. This data goes back all the way to 2005. So we are definitely in a new arena with that. If we look at overall sale pricing, and this is going back to the last 5 years, it's been pretty much a flat line since September of 2022. And I think that just speaks to the strength of the Vancouver market, despite what other people are saying. Being able to just have a flat line here, despite the fact that we are in these weird and strange times in terms of sales and inventory, and that we haven't had this massive crash out, does speak to the resilience of the Vancouver market as a whole. To go into some of these other charts to paint a little bit better of a picture here, you can see some year over year change in sales in Vancouver. You can see the single family market definitely had the smallest drop here in terms of 3%, and the condo market, big time issues here, 16% drop, and then for a total here just over 9%. And as we look at June home sales to really paint a picture here of this market, this has been the third lowest amount of June home sales in the last 25 years. The picture is not pretty here. And for realtors going into these listings, it was a little bit more of a conversation in terms of being able to, adjust prices and things of that nature. But when you are taking listings, especially if a seller has unrealistic expectations that are based on opinion and not fact, to try to get them back to a marker that is going to be reasonable is going to be very, very hard. So it's so important for anyone who's a seller right now, if you are really considering about this, to really dive into the data, to be able to break everything down so you can understand what exactly is happening. I use a lot of the stats that I share with you here. I also have some ones that I can't share that are deeper analytical number that are really helpful because in that scenario, in terms of these numbers, they break it by price band, and we can really dive in to see what price band properties are moving, which ones are not, and which ones are stagnating. So when you are listing, especially in a market where you can see where sales are very, very problematic, it's important to have a data approach and not opinion approach. All my listings currently, and I have a few that have been sitting for a long time, we're definitely more on the opinion base. Sellers, obviously, it's a very emotional investment. Everybody thinks their home is worth the most on the street or in the building. But when you don't base it on these data numbers, this is where things begin to drop, and there's a huge disconnect in the marketplace, especially with a lot of buyers are understanding that the market's soft, but they take it a little bit too far by putting in offers that just don't even make any sense. So when you have a buyer starting at a place that does not make sense, and then you have a seller at a place that just does not make sense, it's impossible to come to common ground. And that's why a lot of these deals are not happening. I think there are a lot of buyers out there. I'm working with some that are putting in most cases, really reasonable offers, because I try to educate all my buyers so that we can get a deal done. Because if you are wanting to purchase something, you got to go in there with an intention of making something work. It's a negotiation. Both people have to come to some sort of terms. But when we have sellers with unrealistic expectations and you're trying to make a deal, it's very hard. Even if the buyer is willing to pay a little bit more if they love the home, but when you have people on both sides of the ledger, it just makes things very difficult. And that's essentially where we've been for the last year. And it does not show that there's going to be any signs of that changing anytime soon. We know that the Bank of Canada held its rate for the third straight month. We're unlikely to get another rate cut by the end of this year. And even if we get a couple rate cuts by next year, it's still not going to be enough to really stem the tide and move things forward here. So it's going to be interesting to see how this fall market moves forward. In my database, I know I have a lot more buyers that are ready to go. They're working with my mortgage brokers, getting their pre-approvals done. So I have seen an uptick with that. I've seen an uptick on buyers ready to go. And for the month of July, for me anyways, in my career, this has been the busiest that I've ever been in both transactions and volume. And what I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, or maybe even a month now, there are a lot of sellers that are understanding that this is the plight of the market. It's not going to be getting better for the next 12 months or so. And they're coming to terms that this is where they are at in terms of pricing, and are willing to make some concessions just to be able to move. And like I said, depending on what your situation is, if you're upsizing and you have a property in play, you're going to be able to make up on the buy side 100%. But if you want to strategize, if you want to understand these data points in greater detail, book that discovery call with me. It's in the QR code there that you can scan, or in the description below. We can go through all this data. We can go through some of the deeper analytical numbers that I have and really come up with a framework. There's a lot of opportunity in markets right now that are in upheaval. And the thing that I never really understood is, when the market starts to take off, that's when other buyers are wanting to jump in or sellers are wanting to sell. But why do you want to enter a place where there's a lot of competition now? There's not a lot of competition, and you can be able to stand out and get good value on the purchases. And if you're priced correctly and if you have equity, you can make a go of it. But the other issue that we have here is a lot of sellers have gotten in trouble who have bought from 2019 and onward. And I would say 80 to 90% of these listings that I'm seeing, the sellers are actually in the red, not only from when they bought it, but when you reduce realtor fees as well. So if you are in a good equity position and you bought before 2019, you should be able to get a good price within that equity context and be able to put that money on a great upside. So if you want to strategize, if you have any questions, book that call in with me, and I'll see you on the next one.